Hey guys, thanks so much for watching today. 150 subscribers. That's crazy. Thank you so much, guys. For 150 subscribers, we're going to be doing a live stream. We're going to finish up Menace Under Otari that Gary converted from to DC-20 from Pathfinder. You can catch us Monday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you're interested in playing in Menace Under Otari, on July 8th at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we're going to be doing a session 0 for Menace Under Otari converted for DC-20. So check out the link in the description. Thanks so much. Have a great day.
Hey guys, welcome to Short Rest. I don't have much of a script for this week, so I'm just going to try to keep it conversational and talk about a couple things that I've had on my mind. One of which is, I think, on a lot of people's minds, which is the Dungeons and Dragons 2024 Player's Handbook. And the question that I would like to answer by the end of this video is, did Wizards of the Coast do enough with the 2024 Player's Handbook, or should they have just created a 6th edition of D&D? I can draw some parallels to its competitions, that being Pathfinder 2nd edition, as well as DC-20. And with that, I'll kind of jump into my thoughts. So, there are some things that I definitely do like about the 2024 Player's Handbook and the changes that they've made. One of which is codifying some very popular house rules into the core rules. The main one being a bonus action to drink a potion. I know at our tables we've always ruled it that way, and I know a lot of other tables do as well. The next thing that I think that they did really well with, as far as codifying the way that the game has trended, is the way that inspiration works. That it's now called heroic inspiration, and it works very similarly to Pathfinder 2nd Edition's Hero Points, where it is a reroll of a die instead of a choosing to gain advantage on a roll. In fact, when I was recently at a convention, one of the 5th edition D&D Adventures League DMs actually made a point to stress that the inspiration that we were handed in the beginning was to be turned in when we wanted advantage on a roll, and it was not for a reroll. And that just speaks to the popularity of using the inspiration as a reroll. I think it's a better mechanic in general. Part of what the creators of D&D said was that there was a lot of ways to gain advantage in 5th edition already, and so having inspiration just be another source of granting advantage didn't seem like it was good enough. The other thing with the reroll is you can see the roll first, and then you know when you need to use it, and you kind of have that moment of, do I accept this failure, or do I attempt this heroic chance of turning the tide of whatever the thing is that I was trying to do? Unlike in Pathfinder 2nd edition, the heroic inspiration can be spent to reroll damage dice, although I'm not sure that's a super good use of it, especially since, as far as I'm aware, you're only re-rolling one die. More likely, you're going to use it on a saving throw that you fail when you really need to make that saving throw, or an attack roll that you really need to make. But I do have to say that hero points are one of my favorite things in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, so heroic inspiration is a welcome change. It just, as a player, allows you that opportunity to take what would have been a failure and turn it around into something good, and it feels really positive as a player when you are able to use your hero point, inspiration. There is the possibility that the roll is worse. At my tables, if you roll, I will let you keep the original. Like if you use your inspiration to re-roll, I will let you keep the original if it's higher. I know that Pathfinder Second Edition does make you keep that new roll, but if you're spending something that is supposed to be heroic, a hero point, a heroic inspiration, I think you should get at least the same result, not worse, when you're trying to correct course on a situation. The other thing that I would say about heroic inspiration hero points is that they often tell a pretty cool story where maybe you've turned a crit failure into a success, and you can kind of build the scene as to what that almost slip up looked like and how the character was able to accomplish the thing that they were trying to do. Again, whether it was avoiding the damage from a fireball or um, something else, making an attack. As far as the heroic inspiration and then hero points go, DC 20 doesn't have a mechanic like that currently. Um, I think it probably could be a good addition. And another thing, at least as far as fifth edition, while I'm on the inspiration topic, is that currently in my games, when I do use this heroic inspiration, if the roll was made with advantage, I allow the re-roll to also have advantage. So it is a complete re-roll, not just like rolling another d20 and making that like a possible outcome. I could see the questions and my ruling on if you had disadvantage on the original roll. I would allow this heroic inspiration because it is heroic to wipe out the disadvantage on a roll, and that's for fifth edition, of course. If it were implemented into DC 20, I'm not sure exactly what it might look like. Probably similar in the sense that you would re-roll under similar conditions. Yeah, probably under similar conditions, I would think. So, those are some of the positives. Another positive is the weapon masteries. They allow you to do things like, let me see, I have that up here on my other screen. You can cleave through multiple targets. So if you have a weapon like a great axe, you can, if you hit a creature with it and there's another target within 5 feet, you can make a second attack against that target. And then that second attack does not add your ability modifier unless it's negative. There's Graze with an example of a great sword where you, even if you miss, you deal at least your ability modifier and damage to the target. Nick, where let's see, allows you to make additional attacks you receive from wielding two light weapons as part of the initial attack action. So it looks like it lets you make the extra attack as part of the attack action rather than following the normal two weapon fighting rules. There's push with an example of a great club where you can push the enemy away from you. You have them make a saving throw. There's sap, which gives them, if you hit them, disadvantage on their next attack roll before the start of your next turn. Slowed, which reduces their speed by 10 feet. example light crossbow. Topple with an example of maul where you can knock them prone. And then Vex, which gives you advantage on your next attack roll before the end of your next turn. So the weapon masteries, they seem really cool. Definitely should make the weapons feel more impactful and important. I am torn to say if it, like, how it falls in comparison to Pathfinder Second Edition's weapon properties, because these are, I think, easier to apply than the Pathfinder Second Edition weapon properties. Although the Pathfinder weapon properties are very cool and definitely are a step above the 2014 D&D weapons in that the properties mean a lot. Uh, but the biggest problem that I see with the weapon properties comes from, I mean, the weapon masteries for the 2024 Player's Handbook comes from the limited amount of them that you know. You can swap them out, it says. Let's see. Okay. If you're wielding a weapon and you've learned its mastery property, you'll be able to use that mastery property every turn when you make an attack with the weapon. Different mastery properties have different triggers. For example, Cleave requires you to hit a creature with a melee attack, while Graze triggers when you miss a creature with an attack roll. Unlike some abilities, there's no limit to how many times mastery properties can be used per short or long rest. So go nuts. Let's see. There was something in here about you can swap them on a long rest. Swap the ones that you want. I'm not seeing that rule currently, but I believe that on a long rest you can swap your weapon masteries. But here's the thing, right? The number of mastery properties that you can learn is specified in your class version of weapon mastery feature. Rogues, Rangers, and Paladins can only access 2 mastery properties at a time, whereas Barbarians and Fighters start with 2 and 3, respectively, and eventually gain access to more mastery properties as detailed in their features table. At level 1, Barbarians, Fighters, Paladins, Rangers, and Rogues get access to the mastery properties for certain types of weapons as listed below. Barbarians, simple and martial melee weapons. Fighters, simple and martial weapons. Paladins, based on weapon proficiency, simple and martial weapons. Rangers, based on weapon proficiency, simple and martial weapons. And Rogues, based on weapon proficiencies, simple and martial weapons with finesse or light property. So the biggest thing that I can compare this to is actually DC 20 and the weapon passives, and currently the weapon maneuvers, although Coach did say that the weapon maneuvers were going to be moved to just basic maneuvers. So you were going to be able to do similar things, but they weren't going to be tied to the weapons. And the passives, though, let you do interesting things with the weapons when you hit. So the thing in DC 20 is that, say, the difference between a martial character like a fighter or a barbarian, a rogue, it really doesn't matter. But if they pick up a weapon and they swing it versus a spellcaster like a cleric, a druid, a wizard, they can all swing that weapon with a +4 bonus to hit, just like there's no difference there. The difference is that the martial character is able to apply the passives. So the passives of those weapons is what makes the martial characters better with the weapons than the spellcasters. On top of the fact that the martial characters also have maneuvers. So even when coach takes the weapon maneuvers out of the game, out of DC 20, the marshals are still going to do better with a weapon than the spellcasters just because they can apply the passives. And then, they'll still be able to pick up similar kind of maneuvers to do things like cause bleeding and cause other conditions. It's just not going to be tied to a specific weapon like they were before. But the cool thing with DC 20 over what's presented here for D&D is that all marshals know all weapon passives. So that means I'm not limited to only 2 per day. And even if you can change them out every day, which actually here it is, I found it. But learning a mastery property isn't permanent. If you stumble across a shiny new +1 longsword and you want to learn its mastery properties instead, don't worry. During a long rest, you can practice weapon drills and swap out one of your weapon choices at the end of the rest. But 5th edition is saying your paladin can only know 2 weapon properties, and they have to be with these specific weapons. Where in DC 20, any of the marshals have access to any of the weapon passives of any of the weapons. So it's just more freeing, more open. You're not restricted the way that you are in 5th edition with this new weapon mastery. I would say that once you've played with this weapon mastery, I personally have not played with I didn't test play on Unearthed Arcana, so I can't really say for certain. But when I think about the times that I've run DC 20 and seen what the marshals are capable of with maneuvers and the passive styles of the weapons, I can imagine that once you've played 5th edition with these masteries, you're not going to want to play 5th edition without these weapon masteries anymore. So the weapon masteries are good. They're very good. I just think it could have been done a little bit better. And the main thing would have been to not be so restrictive with how many of the weapon masteries people can have and what weapons each class can have mastery in. If they had just opened it up, it would have been better. So those are the biggest things mechanically that I think that they've changed as far as the rules and the game itself. And then the other aspect is character creation, which I think they've taken some steps from Pathfinder, and some of those are good. Like, well, backgrounds seem more meaningful, as backgrounds are now where you get your ability score increases with a starting character. So instead of it being tied to your race, now called species, is good because, in essence, starting with Tasha's, if you played with Tasha's custom origin, you could either use the standard bonuses or you could move them to wherever you wanted. And then all of the newer races in like Monsters of the Multiverse and that, they all had either a +2 and a +1 wherever you wanted as far as your stats were concerned, or 3 +1s in whatever stats you wanted. So ultimately you were picking whatever you wanted anyway, and it's just more fitting that it comes from your background now. The possible downside is the fact that you are locked into 3 ability scores that you can choose from to add your boosts to. that's cool that your background kind of dictates where you can put your bonuses. But I have to say that this is one where I think Pathfinder actually does it better. And the reason is when you pick a background in Pathfinder Second Edition, you do have two boosts that come from your background. And yes, one of those boosts is tied to two ability scores, but the other one is free. So you are kind of incentivized in Pathfinder Second Edition to pick a background that fits the character class that you want to play. Because, say, if you're playing a cleric, you want to have an 18 wisdom to start if you can help it, as an example. If you're playing a barbarian, you want an 18 strength, preferably. So giving you that one curated choice of you have to choose between these two, and then giving you a free boost allows you to kind of pick whatever background you want, and you can still guarantee that you can get that 18 in that primary stat. But since D&D is saying you can only pick from these three stats, it means that either people have to make suboptimal choices or you have to pick a background that gives you the stats that you want. And I don't know. I think that could have been handled better on the 2024 handbooks side of things. And then the other big buzz in the background realm of the new player's handbook is the fact that you get a feat. But the important thing there is that it's a first level feat. So it's a very curated list of these are the feats that you can pick. And in fact, I don't even believe that you really get to pick. I think it comes with the background. So in Pathfinder Second Edition, your background gives you those two boosts. One is your choice, and one is curated between two. And then your background in Pathfinder also gives you, trying to make sure I get this right, it gives you a skill feat, and it gives you two skill trainings. So the skill feat, I mean, it's kind of a bonus, but sometimes you might specifically want a skill feat, and that can force your hand into like a background. For example, today I built a gnome champion. So again, we're just conversational here with this video, so I'll dive off into that for a sec. My concept was this little gnome wearing, obviously he's not that little, but wearing full plate heavy armor and a big glaive. I went with the first world heritage and or Fey touched. Anyway, like lots of Fey magic. So he has two cantrips, and one of them I picked was electric arc. And the concept that I had with that is, so you got this little gnome, big glaive, heavy armor, champion, paladin, protecting like much bigger characters, which is just kind of hilarious. But if enemies come within like 30 feet of him, like I see this like electricity like starting to crackle around him and then lashing out through electric arc at those enemies. Uh, Conceptually, I think was pretty cool. But also being a champion, I wanted him to be good at mundane magic as well as, the champion has lay on hands for magical healing as well. So the only way to get battle medicine at first level without probably some variant of human is the field medic background. So I was kind of forced to take field medic in order to get battle medicine at level 1. Now, I could have opted not to get battle medicine at level 1 and pick that up at, I think, level 2. But I thought it was important to have it at level 1 to fulfill the concept that I had for the character as a protector. So also then being a medic, but with like magical and non-magical healing. My point is in that entire ramble that even Pathfinder does kind of force you to make choices depending on if you want a feat or not, like a skill feat that comes with the background. And D&D is kind of doing the same thing. You know, if you want tough, there's probably certain backgrounds that you need to take in order to get tough to get those extra hit points. If there's another, I believe they're called origin feats, but if there's another one that you want, you probably are forced to take a background that maybe your character wouldn't have taken. I will give the new player's handbook this one slight edge, though, for all the negative that I've just said about being forced to either take suboptimal things or uh, min max, like where you have to. There's just certain backgrounds or certain like you have to take these if you want certain abilities, certain feats. But the rules also do give you like a create your own background. And then I think you have the freedom to kind of pick and choose where you want your ability score bonuses to fall from character creation and what feat you pick up at level 1. Um, I have a feeling that a lot of people are probably going to go that route anyway, and that the backgrounds that are in the book are there for either people who don't want to take the time to actually build out a background and they just want to be like, yep, I'm a pirate, I get these things. Or, yep, I'm a laborer, I get these things. So I do have to, again, give a thumbs up to the new player's handbook in the sense that it does allow for players to pick uh, whatever they want to customize their background, call it what they want. Or, I mean, you could probably, even in that example, like if you wanted to play a pirate, you could either take the stock, this is what a pirate is, or customize your background, call it a pirate, and you're done. Um, hmm. So that, and then when it comes to the classes, that's the other thing that fifth edition, this new player's handbook has changed is like the progression for the classes. That all classes now get their subclass at level 3. This is in line with what DC 20 does, where you get your subclasses at level 3. Um, it's probably healthy for the game in a couple ways. One is it kind of decentivizes those one level power dips. Like in the current game, the 2014 handbook, you had, you know, like Warlock dips for Hexblade or Cleric dips for Peace Domain, Twilight Domain, Sorcerer dips, any of the classes that gave you a subclass at level 1. Even like level 2, say like the druid or the wizard. Um, so pushing the subclasses to level 3 kind of fixes that problem. It also standardizes the game where everybody's getting their subclass at the same time, as long as you're not multi-classing. So at level 3, everybody should be getting their subclasses. Uh, I did a thought experiment. Maybe I can get a card here that says it links to the video. It was another short rest where I had Zanny on, and we were talking about multiclassing in DC 20 and what it could look like using 5th edition as a scaffolding for that. So I built a 20th level barbarian and I used the DC 20 multiclassing rules instead of the 5th edition multiclassing rules. So it's an interesting thought experiment. So I would definitely click the card and check out that video. If not, just go back through the videos. Um, it was DC-20 multiclassing through a fifth edition perspective. So a lot of the subclasses are cleaned up, fixed. The ones that were underpowered are, more balanced in comparison to the others. So in general, they're probably better, more fun to play. There are some like gripes over paladins probably getting nerfed. I didn't actually watch the video on rogues, but I did see somebody say in their video description that rogues might be the weakest class now. And I know D4 did a video recently on rogue building an assassin out of the 2024 handbook. So I can't really speak too much to that. I have listened to some of the subclass stuff. I listened yesterday to the Warlock one, Traint Monk going over um, the different Warlock stuff, including the subclasses, and it sounded interesting what they did with the Archfey and what they did with the Great Old One. Even the slight tweaks to the Fiend and the Celestial. So, in general, it sounds like they have kind of turned the dial up on the subclasses and on the classes. So, they are probably more fun to play than the current iteration. But this comes to like some of the biggest questions that I would have as far as did Wizards of the Coast push far enough with what they did? And so I have to be real. I think like I've been playing 5th edition since it came out in 2014. I played 4th edition before that, and I've enjoyed 5th edition. I think it's a simple game in general. It's pretty easy to teach. The play is overall kind of intuitive and quick. There's it's not rules light, but it's rules lighter than some of the crunchier games. And for that, I think it does a good job. But since I've looked at games like Pathfinder 2nd Edition and DC-20, I do find myself underwhelmed with 5th Edition, with how the characters feel when they level up, and they don't really gain any features, sometimes no features. Or, I've been spoiled big time by Pathfinder 2nd Edition and the way it handles its ability score increases with the ability boosts at level 5, 10, 15, and I believe it's 19. But being able to boost 4 different attributes by depending on if you're going the original core rulebook or the player core, it's either a +2 boost to an ability score or a +1 boost to the attribute bonus. It's the same thing regardless, but um, yeah, it's just like in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, when you reach level 5, like you feel that like massive improvement over the earlier levels between becoming an expert with weapons if you're a martial character to gaining like 4 ability boosts where like that's drastic improvement across like a lot of your statistics. And when I think back to, I think 4th edition was like this as well, and definitely 3.5 D&D and Pathfinder 1st edition where you only got 1+1 on the ability score increase levels, but you only got a boost to your ability score on the even numbers. So that if you had like a 12 in an ability score and you're only getting a +1, like it feels terrible to put that +1 into the thing and make it a 13, and it doesn't even do anything for you. So coming from those older editions where it was like a +1 to fifth edition where you get either 2+1s or a +2, and you can actually see an increase in an ability score at levels 4, 8, 12, 16, and 19, unless you're a fighter or a rogue, it feels much better. But then you go to Pathfinder Second Edition and you're getting four of those. Four of those. That's incredible. And um, I just I don't think that the new handbook did anything to change that. DC 20 kind of gets around that, I think, by having the prime modifier where like your major class features are based on your highest attribute. So as long as you can steadily increase that ability score at the levels that you're allowed to, which it's capped at +3 until level 5, and then at level 5 you can push that up to +4, and then at level 10 you can push that to +5, and so on to a maximum of +7 at level 20. But the thing with fifth edition that I think really Wizards of the Coast did not go far enough with is sticking to the original multi-classing rules where you have to forego a level in your primary class to take a level in another class. I just think that the way that Pathfinder Second Edition handles multiclassing and the way that DC 20 handles multiclassing is way better. Where in Pathfinder Second Edition, you take a dedication feat either through one of your class feats that so you forego a class feat and then you take a little bit of multiclassing instead. Or a lot of tables play with the free archetype variant where you get a every time you gain a class feat on all the even levels, you also gain a free archetype feat that you can spend on an archetype on a like multiclassing. So that's essentially allowing you to multiclass for free throughout the life of your character, and it's amazing. It feels so good. And you're not giving up the progression in your main class. On the DC 20 end of things, you get talents at certain levels, and you can spend those talents to either gain like general boosts to your abilities, to gain talents from your class, or to multi-class and pick up. Now, here's the cool part: a feature from another class. And again, if you check the card earlier or just search my other videos, you can see where we talked about multiclassing in DC 20 using 5th edition again as the scaffolding for it. But, you know, if you want something from the barbarian, like its rage or its reckless attack, you just spend that talent and go grab that one feature. And otherwise, you're still leveling in your main class. And it's cool, it's clean, it's not overpowered, and it allows you really just to keep progressing without being held back and held back from your later features. So the multi-classing, I think, is a problem with fifth edition, and it's a problem that continues. And the reason is that, you know, it's still fifth edition, even though it's a new player's handbook. But I think probably the biggest factor is the action economy. So if I had to list out D&D's biggest flaws with 5th edition, it is the multi-classing. It is lackluster character development where you have dead levels where you're not gaining very much and you don't really feel like you're improving. I think that's somewhat in the new subclass features and the new class features. I think they've fixed some of that, but until I actually see the book, it's tough for me to say how fixed that is. But the action economy is probably number one, and the problem with it is the whole bonus action, action, movement, reaction. Pathfinder Second Edition with the 3 action economy is it's amazing when you first experience it, in the sense that you don't have turns where you don't need to move, but you have this thing called movement and you can't use it and it's worthless to you because you're not going to move, but you can't do anything else with it. Or characters that don't have bonus actions, but you have this thing called a bonus action and you can't use it. I mean, I'm currently running a game where I have a monk player and he can hit at least 2 times a turn, sometimes 3 if he uses Flurry of Blows, and all the other characters can only hit 1 time. Like, the balance between the actions it's terrible in 5th edition. And then even last night I was running a 5th edition game and I had a player who asked, can I use 2 bonus actions instead of like a bonus action and an action? Pretty much, can I trade out my action for another bonus action? Now, the 4th edition player in me has no problem with that. That makes perfect sense. Because in 4th edition, you had a minor action, a move action, and a major action. And you could switch out, always trading up so that you could give up your movement for a second minor action. You could give up your major action for either another movement or another minor action. So in a turn, you could do minor action, minor action, minor action. You could do move, move, minor action. Just or minor action, move. Yeah, but you had more flexibility in the way that you could craft your turn, and it just it feels bad. I think in 5th edition when you don't use your movement, you don't use your bonus actions, like wasted actions, and then to compensate for that, they created this thing called extra attack where you're making 2, 3, 4 attacks with 1 action, and then like action surge, and then you're making like up to 8 attacks, and then if you have certain subclasses of fighter, then you're talking about like up to 11 attacks on 1 turn, and no penalty to any of the attacks. So it's just absurd, and the action economy is the biggest problem. But the problem is, without a massive redesign, you can't really implement another action economy in 5th edition. I've tried. I've tried using DC20's 4-point action economy. Uh, I did a video talking about that. I'll see if I can get a card for that. Otherwise, you can just search through the backlog. But it was okay. I'm just summarized. I'll say it was okay. But the biggest problem is spells, spell casting, and if you have 4 actions, like without blanket saying that like all the spells cost 2 or 3 actions or whatever you want to call it, maybe 2 actions for a cantrip, 1 action or 3 actions for like a regular spell, level 1 through 9, whatever, or more like a better way to handle that would be to actually go through each spell like Pathfinder did and say, this spell costs 1 action, this spell costs 2 actions, this spell costs 3 actions. This spell is variable. You can cast it with 1, 2, 3 actions, 1, 2, or 3, and it has a variable effect depending on how you cast it. But the spells are not made in 5th edition with this in mind. So the spell casting is the biggest problem with the action economy, and then things like extra attack. So just the way that the 5th edition is built around this very distinct action types makes it so that you pretty much have to play it the way that it is designed, as far as extra attack, the way that extra attack is, and so on. Kick around some other ideas, one of which was that in 5th edition maybe you could have 2 actions instead of just the 1 action, and you could spend that action to either make 2 attacks, or you could borrow from DC 20 where you have disengage and full disengage, so you could spend one of those actions on a disengage, where then opportunity attacks have disadvantage against you, and then you could still attack and move, or you can spend one of those 2 actions on like a dash, but dash would be half your speed. So you could dash and get the benefit of full dash, but you could also still attack. I think there's some potential there, just being able to be flexible with your action economy. But ultimately, it just would be better to get rid of all of that and go to a 4-point system like DC 20 has. And why do I say the 4-point action economy? It's because, say, Pathfinder has the 3 action economy, but it still has a reaction. So you still have that hanging reaction. And, I already mentioned how it feels bad when you can't move. And so you waste this action called move. It feels bad when you have a bonus action hanging there and you don't have a bonus action to use, so that's wasted. But it also feels bad when you have a reaction and nothing triggers that reaction, but then maybe monsters are triggering reactions on you. So instead of having these like conditional reactions that you may or may not be able to take, giving you 4 action points, I think, is one of the most brilliant things that DC 20 did to tabletop role playing, because you're no longer locked into being told how to spend your actions. Even the sense of a reaction, you're not being told you have to take that reaction to optimize your turn. Instead, if you don't take any reactions, guess what? You have 4 action points on your turn. So you can spend them how you want, spend them on what you want. So, final thoughts. When I think about the 2024 Player's Handbook, do I get excited? The answer is yes. In general, yes. I think it's an improvement to 5th edition. I think there's going to be a little bit of question over how do you implement the Tasha's and Xanathar subclasses or other subclasses from other books that aren't currently updated for the new player handbook. And the main thing is that you get your subclass and your subclass features maybe at different levels than you did before. So do they still play nice with the new book? In general, I think adopting those rules is good. The heroic inspiration, the bonus action for the potion, allowing players to craft character either 2014 or 2024. And of course, the caveat there is you can't cherry pick which ones you want. You either build based on the 2014 rules or you build based on the 2024 rules. But as long as you do that, I think it's fine. I guess the main thing, though, that a lot of people would want to know is the answer to the question I posed in the beginning, which is, did Wizards of the Coast do enough, or should they have released a sixth edition? And the truth of the matter is, I think they should have released a sixth edition. I think they didn't push the envelope enough, and I think they didn't push the envelope enough because they were trying to capture the momentum that they've built with fifth edition over the last 10 years, plus all of the people who are currently playing Baldur's Gate 3 that they might be able to draw in. So there might be some really good reasons to not have released a sixth edition. Personally, I would have liked to have seen a sixth edition instead, because I think especially fixing the action economy would have been huge. So, with that said, will I play with the 2024 Player's Handbook? Sure. Is it going to be my preferred? I don't think so. I think, honestly, I'm going to be looking to play DC 20. Pathfinder has a place for me. D&D has a place for me. But whenever I play either of those systems, honestly, I wish I was playing DC 20. So I'm really excited to see where that goes. And with that, this short rest is over. So take care, guys, and I'll catch up with you next week. Oh, yeah, one more thing. Very important. The Kickstarter for DC 20 ends in a week. So if you haven't already, check it out. It's hopefully going to break 2 million. And, well, the next stretch goal is really cool because it's 4 ancestries, and some of them, like, so cool. Gremlins, Goblins, Shadowborn, Terraborn. But the stretch goal after that, I mean, it would be amazing if we could hit that because it's dedicated VTT support to get VTT support out quicker. And I think that would be amazing. But anyway, check out the Kickstarter, dungeoncoach.com. And yeah, later. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the content that you just saw, consider joining one of our games at startplaying.gaming/roll with us DMs.